Welcome to the Prolific Pulse Poetry Podcast and YouTube. This is your host, Lisa Tomei. I'm very happy to welcome today as our guest Annie Chiapetta. She's from the Hudson Valley of New York, an area that I've been near to in my life, and it's absolutely beautiful there. And I
Mhm.
want to welcome you, Annie, to our show.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, it's a pleasure. Now, one of your I guess, expressions is that you are making meaningful connections with others through writing. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What you mean by that?
Yes. Well, that came about as a challenge actually. In one of my writing groups, we challenged each other to do a tagline, and that's the one I came up with. It was much longer than that at first, and it got shortened and shortened and shortened. And believe it or not, it just kind of made itself. And so what I mean by it is making meaningful connections through my writing, through my poetry, getting people to read, whether it's prose or poetry, and have a personal connection with it, have it resonate with you, because words are important, and words are meaningful, and they have staying power, and we can gather all kinds of uh, comfort from it. We can feel inspired by it. So that's what that means.
Okay, wonderful. I have something in common because I had read that you were an artist, and then you did to transition more with the writing. Um, you were an acrylic artist, is that correct?
Wow. So long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was a designer of acrylic furniture, like the clear acrylic furniture,
Uh-huh.
and little things that you put in your bathroom that are clear and all those things. But I was doing the larger pieces, display cases, tables, things like that.
Oh.
And I was doing that for a long time, and then I went out on maternity leave and to have my first kid. And when I tried to come back and read the line drawings and the architectural sketches, I couldn't do it, and something was wrong with my eyes. And that was when I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, and that's when my life as a visual artist ended, and I made the transition to the written word, to the literary arts.
Wow. Then to make a transition, I'm sure that just wasn't an overnight thing. Seems to me like that would be a long process to make that change.
Yeah, it took a long time. It from beginning to end, I would say about 10 years for me
Hmm.
to make the adjustment, the physical adjustments, to being a blind person, and then the psychological adjustment that took a lot longer. I had to do occupational training, learn how to use a white cane, how to be safe, travel, not just for myself but for my children too. I had
Right.
I was having I have two kids, and during that time I had to learn how to take care of them and travel with them and do all that stuff, being visually impaired. And then my education, uh, I was lucky to have a great rehabilitation counselor, and she pushed me to get my master's degree. So that's what I did.
Wonderful. And what is your master's in?
I have a master's in marriage and family therapy from Iona College.
Oh, wow. Now, have you been practicing in that field?
I practiced in that field for 8.5 years as a counselor, for the VA, as a readjustment counselor for veterans and their
Oh,
families.
wow, that's wonderful. Well, certainly a group of folks that need a lot of adjustment, and these days, I know it's pretty rough. So I'm glad that you were able to do that to help these people.
Yes, I
Wonderful.
feel very fortunate and gratified about the work I did with veterans and their families.
Hmm.
I, speaking of making meaningful connections, wow, those were a lot of meaningful connections. And some of my poetry, actually, not all of it, but I would say about a third of it is inspired by that processing in some way the trauma in life, and
Uh-huh.
how the beauty in life, you know, can help heal the trauma. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, there's it's just that's, just the suffering some of those veterans endured,
Hmm.
and still endure, is
Yes.
something we should try to help them any way we can.
Hmm. Absolutely. I'm a big supporter of that. I'm an Air Force brat, was brought up in a military home and retired
Oh,
father and a lot of family members in the military, and it's always been something near and dear to my heart of it's a different kind of lifestyle.
yes,
And yeah, and
my
then you would
husband's a
throw
veteran.
war into it. He is, well, great.
Yeah,
I'm grateful to his service. And I'm
yeah.
grateful to your service as well.
And yours and your family too, your dad.
Yeah.
It is a different kind of life, and
Hmm.
there, you know, I don't. I mean, it's one of those things that you don't know it unless you know it.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
It's interesting because my father, we used to say he had the military determination. Like when
Mm,
he used to have to lose weight to keep his position in the military, because they're strict about
yeah,
weight.
the physical. Yeah.
He all of a sudden would just, put that discipline in, and he could get it off. Then of course after the physical he'd start putting it back on again. But you know that military beer.
You
But
know, yeah.
yeah. But but he had a certain discipline. When he quit smoking, he just quit, never went back.
Yeah,
It's
my
just
husband's
the
like
way.
that.
Yeah. So I think it's something that's instilled in that type of a lifestyle. So that's a good thing. And I have a lot of that determination as well. So I guess I'm grateful that I picked up some of those habits. So
It does rub
now,
off. That's for sure.
yeah, I think the can-do attitude. Well, if you've got a roadblock, then you find a way around it. You try, and you just make it work. And it sounds to me like with you're becoming blind, and then say, okay, well then I need to come up with another way of doing things. And you got your education, you work, and now you're a writer. And I mean, you haven't been stopped from doing the things that are meaningful. So that's wonderful.
Thank you.
It's inspiring. It really is. To write a book about you. Are you writing a book about yourself? You need to do your memoir.
Well, yeah, I might actually go back to that at some point. Uh, I started out writing poetry. It's my first love. It's what made the catharsis of going through my adjustment to blindness, uh, uh, bearable. and
Mhm.
and eventually, I began thriving, and then I realized the poetry and the creative spirit is one of the things that grounded me,
Mhm.
healed me, and kept me going, and gave me part of that. You talk about that backbone, about the I. Someone says no, no is not the answer for me. I don't like hearing no. We can't do that. That's always
No.
been, my husband says, oh no, here she goes. So funny. So, but you know so the poetry came first, then I wrote about my guide dogs, because that was such an inspirational moment in my life, and continues
Oh.
to be, being independent, and having a guide dog be your partner in independence is just a very personally validating thing for me. So I wrote part of my memoir, also has pieces about growing up visually impaired, uh,
Mhm.
because I always grew up with those really thick glasses on, and I
Mhm.
could never see things. And I was always, up against the edge of the book and the TV. I had to sit practically on top of the television. Um,
Right.
I had all the classic signs of RP, but they didn't know it back then. So, but
Right.
when I was a kid, I mean, what did you know when you were a kid? You just did it. You just did what a
Yeah.
kid does, and
Mhm.
you go along in life. And sure, there
Right.
were barriers. There were times where it was really hard when I was a kid.
Mhm.
I wanted to do things that other kids would do, and I couldn't do them.
Right.
Like I couldn't play ball, couldn't play
Mhm.
baseball or anything. I had no peripheral vision, so like the ball would hit me in the head, or I'd miss.
Oh,
And then,
yeah.
I mean, I look back on it now and I laugh, but it wasn't. It was so humiliating when I was a kid. It really was.
Oh, I imagine
Yeah.
so.
So, but so I wrote about some of that in Follow Your Dog: A Story of Love and Trust. Then I
Mhm.
went back to some poetry and nonfiction essays in Words of Life, which is the book that I gave you.
Mhm.
Uh, and then I flipped totally the other direction, and I have a collection of short stories called A String of Stories from the Heart to the Future. And that's being recorded on Audible as we speak, and it will be out in a
Oh,
few months. So,
wonderful.
yeah. So, and I am working on a novel, and it's based on a young girl coming of age story. Um, and she does wear glasses, but she's not significantly visually impaired. She has
Mhm.
other challenges in life. So
Okay.
yeah, but so that's what I'm working on. I try to
Oh.
keep focused with my writing, because it, like I said, it grounds me, um, and it just gives me you know, it just gives me so much more than um, than I even expect. Like each book gives me a gift, and I don't know what that gift's going to be until after the book's written and I hear from the
Mhm.
people that read it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. And I'll share your poems, in this podcast too, so people can hear. I really liked hearing you recite, hearing your voice and reciting the poems. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with our audience. And when you do write, how do you do that? Do you speak into your computer, or what's your
Oh,
method?
sure. Technology. I love my technology. I started using a computer that talked back to me back in 1993.
Mhm.
I use a text to speech program called JAWS. It's called Job Access with Speech.
Oh,
Basically, what it does is uh, everything that I type into the keyboard, it talks back to me. So anything that's on the computer, because you know how computer language is all text,
yeah.
and so it will be coded and pick up the code, and so I type everything in my computer. I know every computer keyboard command on God's green earth.
Great.
um,
You're better than
and
me.
and then it talks back to me. So I use Word, and I have a laptop. I'm able to do everything a sighted person is able to do, thanks to technology. Uh,
Great.
I'm on my iPhone right now with you, and
Hmm.
it has what's called voiceover. So so all I do is swipe and tap with my finger, and it tells me everything that's on the um, on the display. So
Okay. Well,
yeah,
that's great. I
yeah.
discovered just kind of accidentally one day, not too long ago, that I could talk into my Word program and it would type things up, and I thought, oh, this could be dangerous. I mean,
It's
especially when
fun.
I get those free flowing poems. I get some once in a while one will hit me, and I just go on and on and on. I thought I've got to, when I get hit with one of those, I need to open that up and start talking and see what
Yeah.
happens.
The stream of
Yeah,
consciousness.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
important
because
stuff.
those
I
are
get
hard
dreams
to
like
to
that.
write.
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes wake up from a dream, and I'll say,
Mhm.
"Oh, this dream is just I've got it," and I just I turn on my voice memo on my phone, and I'm
Mhm.
half asleep and I'm talking, but I know if I don't do it then,
Mhm.
I'll lose it. An hour later, I'll be like,
Hey.
"What was I
Yeah.
dreaming about?" Yeah, the
Yeah.
mind.
I wake up about 3 or 4 in the morning, and it's like if something will come to me, a whole poem or will
Yeah.
come to me. I'm like, so all I have to do is move, and I forget it. But I'm doing better about remembering.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna keep on writing. I want to get a book a year out.
Mhm.
And it's in, people, when I say that, people are like, wow, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. I have been saving writing for over 20 years. I have
Mhm.
hundreds of poems. I have ideas for books. I have short stories. I have essay. I mean, I write every day, and
Good.
I keep writing every day because it's what grounds me. It's
Mhm.
what makes me um, feel like I'm a human being. Uh, you know,
Exactly.
yeah.
And once you have that discipline too, it's a discipline of writing every day, and you miss some time for some reason, unpredictable reason, um, it's like you're longing to get back to your friend. Hey, I need to get back to my friend and keep writing.
Oh
You know,
yes.
it's it's
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
it's a hard one to move away from. So,
Yeah. It's a muscle, just like everything else.
hmm
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
yes,
I
it is.
actually wrote a poem about that. It's called The Writing Muscle.
The
Um,
writing muscle.
yeah. I have to send it to you. So when I wrote my first poetry book, Upwelling, instead of writing an introduction, I wrote a poem as an introduction.
Hmm.
And I did that with Words of Life as well. I wrote an introductory poem um, instead of writing one of those standard introductions, I felt, oh, why don't I write a poem instead of just, text? And
Yeah.
not many people got the hang of that. So
Hmm.
they were like, well, where's your intro? I'm like, well, it's the poem. And they go, oh,
Yeah.
but I took a chance, I
Yeah.
took a chance.
Hey,
So,
you got
yeah.
to try new things and put your signature on it. One of my clients decided that they wanted to do that for their last book, and at first I was like, well, why not? It's your book if you want to do it that way, and it came out rather nicely. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it all worked
It,
out.
yeah. Independent publishing. Um, I guess I'd like to talk a little bit about how I got into that. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, it ended up being a successful story for me, but not at first.
Mhm.
Uh, and part of the reason was because of technology not being accessible to me.
Mhm.
'Cause way back when I was first even thinking about doing a chapbook, this is like 2015, 2016, even before then. None of these desktop publishing services that do it yourself, the DIY, they were not accessible to people who are visually impaired, so it didn't work with my software or anything. So that means I either had to pay somebody, which I couldn't afford to pay, a public, and then or have a publishing house pick me up, which that was just as impossible because rejection slips outweigh your acceptance letters by
Yeah.
40 to 1. So I gave up at first. I did. I said, this is too hard. I can't do this. And it really upset me, because I had this create this drive to, I wanted to share my stuff. I wanted to have a book. I wanted to be able to go to the libraries and say, look, this is my book or whatever. And then I put it aside for a while. And then what happened was, my mom got really sick, and while she was um, in the last 3 or 4 months of her life, she she told me, she said, she knew she was going to die, and we knew, and she made me promise that I would publish my books. And
Mm.
and I said, okay. And that was a promise I made her. And
Right.
6 months later, the book came out. And it was almost like after she said that, everything fell into place.
Mhm.
I found these wonderful people who helped me prepare the book. They helped me, put it up on Amazon. They helped me do the line editing. They were reasonably priced, and so I was at my most desperate moment with the book, and it suddenly just everything fell into place. And I truly believe that was just, I don't know if it's serendipity or fate or, an intervention, but that's what happened. It was like once I said to my mother, I will do it. It was almost like what's the word? It was a promise kept. It
I
got
promise.
done, and
Yeah.
it was a miracle to me. I was like, wow, I actually did this, and I dedicated the book to her, and ever since then, things have been going well for me. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It was meant to be.
yes, it was.
That was my mother always used to say, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. And with my mother, it was finishing college was like my promise to her, and she had gotten sick while I was she passed my last year of college, and
No.
um, at that point, I was thinking about, you know, just dropping out for a while
Mm-hmm.
to take care of her full time, but I knew that it would have broken her heart if I had done that. So
Mm-hmm.
I went forward, and so when I got my degree, I felt like I was getting one for her too because she was such a cheerleader all the way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So those memories are driving forces for
Yes.
us to do things.
Yeah. And every book
Absolutely.
says for Mary. That's, because that's
Mhm.
how I honor her and her spirit. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's
So
that worked. And like I said, ever since that point, ever since I got in touch with the right people for the independent publishing piece, it's a marvelous experience for me. It doesn't matter whether I can see or not, and that's important. That's really, I don't think people really understand or appreciate how hard it is to select a
mhm.
cover when you can't see it, or
Yeah.
or have somebody find somebody who can accurately describe
Mhm.
the cover of what you want, or
Mhm.
little bits and pieces of subtext and context of all this stuff. And I found the right people to help me. So it's
Yeah.
like I said, it's a gift.
Yep. It really is. I have a niece that she's done a couple of commission pieces for me. She's done the book cover for an anthology I've got coming out, and I just told her what I had in mind, and so she just went with it. And when she showed me what she was, her rough sketches and that, I was blown away. I was just
Yeah.
like, you read my mind. Now she's working on another one for me, and give her the idea of what I'm looking for. And then I didn't, wasn't going to say anything. And finally, I said, we talk about the soul and the butterfly representing the soul, and
Yeah.
she's like, oh my goodness. She said that's the same way I feel, and so I'm waiting to see what she ends up with for me on that one.
Good. That's
Yeah.
good. I think, yeah, that's the other thing too, is finding people who can grab on and understand your
Hmm.
level of creativity, and draw off that, and then it's just so energizing.
Hmm.
It really is. And um, the people that help me with my books, there are a couple that live in Colorado. Um, they're called DLD Books. Uh, the husband his name is David Dworkin. He is a published author, mostly science fiction,
Hmm.
analog type of science fiction.
Hmm.
He's a fascinating man, and him and his wife, this is what they do. They do book preparation services and help people like me become independently published and successful. Um,
Great.
yeah, and if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would be able to be where I am today. Um,
Yeah.
they're just great people. Um, you know, they don't do any marketing. That's all up to me.
Hmm.
that
Right.
that's the, I guess, the hardest part about being a independently published is the marketing piece.
It's the
And
marketing. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of pressure, a lot
Hmm.
of time, a lot of
Yes.
time.
I think I spend more time on that than I do on the actual book preparation.
Yeah,
Seems like,
yeah,
well, you kind of have to start marketing almost before you get the book written. Um, but it's yeah, a challenge. That's
I
for
haven't
sure.
been able to accomplish that yet. Like I always seem to feel like I'm behind on that. Like, oh, I should have done this 6 months ago, but 6 months ago I wasn't ready. Like
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
don't know how to shift that in my head.
Well, and sometimes you start to write something and you're going to go one direction, and then next thing you know, you found a different road you want to travel on. And so
Yeah.
and you start like a book that's going on one theme, and then you find another project that your poetry fits better in that book. And I
Mm.
had one book I was starting, and it's gone into three different books because it's not based out of that book anymore. So yeah, things change.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Um, have you ever done national like the National Novel Writing Month or anything like that, or large
Yeah,
writing challenges?
I have the NaNoWriMo.
Yeah.
I'm pitiful.
No.
However, in April, that is National Poetry Month, and I
Yes.
am very strong, very religious about writing a poem every single day of the month. And
Good for
by
you.
the time the month is over, I'm about dead, but I did it.
Oh, wow.
And,
Yeah, I haven't done that in a while. I usually I do one or two a week during National Poetry Month. Um,
mhm,
I belong to a writers group called Behind Our Eyes, and um, we give each other poetry challenges on the email list that we belong to, and we
oh,
really help each other out. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
mhm,
Uh, so this month we are. They actually asked me to host the coordination of National Poetry Month for Behind Our Eyes. So
mhm,
we're going to have um, a couple of uh, on Sunday evenings we have like a focused guest or topic,
mhm,
and then during the week we're going to have two or three different poets put out an email, have a little bit of like biographical thing about answering questions, and then they're going to share one of their favorite forms of poetry and share a poem, and then share a prompt. And that's how we
nice.
handle that. And it comes out, I wrote I think 7 or 8 poems that month that were really good.
Oh,
So
nice.
looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah, I belong to a group called Living Poetry, and they are the largest poetry group in this part of North Carolina. And um, you know, we're doing quite a bit for April. But they have an online writing group that's been going on for a long time where it's not really where people sit and write, but you share poetry to get feedback. So it's like a critique kind of group, and that's been real helpful a lot too.
Yeah, yeah. Behind Our Eyes does very similar things. We
Mhm.
um we have critique groups that break out, and we limit it to 6 person per group, and they meet at different times of the month.
Mhm.
Then we have a general critique, like people who don't do it very often, but just once in a while want to throw their
Mhm.
stuff in, and then be on the call to help each other. That we get everything compiled, and then we meet, and then they go through
Mhm.
piece by piece, and people get their critiques that way. Um,
Yeah, those are
yeah,
really
that's
helpful.
yes, very helpful. Then we have a called the readers workshop, where we get people, they practice reciting their poetry or short prose,
Mhm.
um, with people who the group listens, and it's important because not many people who are visually impaired feel confident about reading their work out loud.
Mhm.
And so we facilitate that by allowing them to have a safe uh, comfort level, um, when they're reading their work, because some of the people read from Braille, and you know so they need a place to practice, and they need people to listen, and to
Mhm.
say, well, you could have done this line better, or that might have been a little too slow, or you rushed past this, or you know they want a safe place to get that kind of input, so that when
Mhm.
they are asked, to you know to recite their stuff, they're more confident about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Annie, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to talk about?
Well, now that I'm on the reciting part of how does someone like me get out and do presentations or recite their work, since I'm not a Braille reader because I lost my vision so late in life, it just reading Braille never took with me, I guess you could say. Um, that I rely on my technology to recite my work. And what I do is I practice while listen, and I have it like an earbud in my ear. And I have my computer set up. And so if I was going to do a presentation, for instance, in a library on my poetry reading, I would have the reading set up on my, as a Word document. I'd have the earbud in my ear, and I would prompt myself before I spoke.
Oh,
So
wow.
the poetry would be coming in, and I'd be, and it takes a lot of practice. It's kind of
Sure.
like learning a script.
Uh-huh.
And, one of the downfalls of that is that I can't do, a lot of my poetry. I have to prepare for it. There's
Right.
no pick up a poem and just read from the page. That's the only
Sure.
disadvantage.
Mm.
But I've taught myself to do that because that's how I do my
Mm-hmm.
recitations, and it's really helped me become a better performer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of my poetry is I have audio files on my website, which is annchiapetta.com, and I have a couple of videos up there. I have I did a poetry reading last September, um, that that's up there. People want to listen. Um,
Okay.
so so do you want me to go through my contact information, or?
Well, I'm actually showing a screen now with Chiappetta.com,
Yep.
and I see you're also on Facebook and Twitter,
Yes. And I have
and
a blog.
you have the dldbooks.com
All right.
with the Words of Life poems and essays on it.
Yes, all my books are on DLD Books, and then I also have a blog called Thought Wheel,
Thought
and
Wheel. Okay.
that should be at the bottom of the page. Should be a link at the bottom of the page for my
Well,
blog.
get to
More
see.
writing from Ann, and then you'll see.
Okay.
And I have about 500 followers on my blog, and you can sign up to get my updates. I usually run my blog usually once or twice a month, uh, and I also have I started an IO group for my like a newsletter, and that's called
Mm-hmm.
Annie Shares News. Um, so if you wanted to subscribe to the newsletter, it would be Annie Shares News plus subscribe at groups.io. And I
Okay.
put out a once a month, unless I have a special, something special going on. So
Okay. Wonderful. Lots of ways to do things, lots of ways to communicate with people. Beautiful,
that's what they
beautiful.
tell you. The experts say, well, you have to have all this so that no matter what somebody does, they can find you. So like, okay,
Absolutely.
I will do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I saw you're a member of the Nonfiction Writers
Yeah,
Association, which I'm
yeah,
also a member.
yeah. That's how I
Um,
got this interview with you. It was from their call for interviews. That they send out an email, and
mhm.
that's how I got it. So yeah, and FAA, I get a lot of great stuff from them. I'm really glad I'm a member. Uh, it's really helped, I think, advance just my communication with people like
Mhm.
you. I mean, we're all out there. Sometimes it feels like we're in a bubble. We- you know?
Yeah, I didn't even know I was going around in a list and emails. But I
You
must have done it a
were,
long time ago.
yeah,
So I'm glad. I'm glad
yeah,
that you
me
found it.
too.
Nobody else has come to me from that direction. So So I'm glad to know it worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Annie, it's been a pleasure to have you on here today. I wish you lots and lots of great writing to continue, and I'll be following you to see what's going on.
Great, Lisa. Thank you so much. I had a great time, and
Thank you.
it's always great to just meet other writers and share the experience.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, and you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye bye.